Life is unpredictable. No matter how much we try to control our surroundings, unexpected challenges will always find a way into our path. But what if the key to peace wasn't in controlling the world, but in mastering ourselves? The Stoics believe that true strength lies not in external power, but in inner resilience. They taught us that we suffer not because of events themselves, but because of how we perceive them. A rejection, a failure, a harsh word from someone. Do these things truly harm us, or is it our reaction that gives them power? Imagine facing a setback, yet remaining calm. Instead of drowning in frustration, you choose to see it as an opportunity for growth. That's the essence of Stoicism, learning to embrace what we cannot change and focusing only on what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our attitude. So, the question is, how much of your daily stress comes from things outside your control? And more importantly, how different would your life be if you simply let go of them? Share your thoughts below. The power of perspective. Control your mind, control your life. In life, we often find ourselves frustrated, angry, or even devastated, not because of what happens to us, but because of how we interpret it. The Stoics understood this well. They believe that external events hold no real power over us. It is our perception of these events that shapes our reality. This is a simple yet profound truth. Our suffering is not caused by life itself, but by our thoughts about life. Think about the last time you felt truly upset. Was it because someone let you down? Because you failed at something important? Because life didn't unfold the way you expected? Now take a step back. Was it the event itself that caused your suffering, or was it your interpretation of it? If someone insults you, the words themselves are just sounds in the air. But if you allow those words to define your worth, you have given them power. If you fail at something, the failure itself is neutral. But if you see it as proof that you're not good enough, then the real pain comes from within. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of Stoicism, the understanding that while we cannot control everything that happens to us, we can always control how we respond. The world may be chaotic, but our inner world, our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions, is ours to govern. This shift in perspective is liberating. Instead of seeing obstacles as personal attacks from the universe, we begin to view them as challenges that help us grow. Instead of dwelling on rejection or disappointment, we recognize that every hardship carries a lesson. Imagine how different your life would be if you stopped reacting emotionally to every difficulty and instead approached each situation with calm, rational thinking. Of course, this is easier said than done. We are human, and emotions are natural. The goal is not to suppress our feelings but to master them. The Stoics didn't believe in becoming emotionless. They believed in developing the wisdom to respond to life with clarity and composure. They practiced reminding themselves daily, "Is this within my control?" If the answer was no, they let it go. So, here's a question for you. What's one situation in your life right now that is causing you stress, simply because of how you are interpreting it? What would happen if you changed your perspective? Let's discuss in the comments below. Warning signs. When the mask falls, truth emerges. Life has a way of revealing the truth, no matter how deeply it is buried beneath illusions. People wear masks, sometimes to protect themselves, sometimes to deceive others. But no mask lasts forever. The Stoics understood that reality cannot be denied indefinitely. Eventually, contradictions surface, actions betray words, and the truth stands exposed for those willing to see it. The question is, will we acknowledge it, or will we turn away out of fear? Think about a time when you ignored red flags, whether in a relationship, a friendship, or even a business deal. Perhaps you noticed small inconsistencies, words that didn't quite match actions, promises that were frequently broken, behaviors that didn't align with claimed values. Maybe you felt a deep, unshakable instinct telling you something was off. But instead of facing the discomfort of the truth, you dismissed it. Maybe I'm overthinking, you told yourself. Maybe it's not that serious. This is a common human tendency. We avoid unpleasant realities because they force us to confront difficult emotions, betrayal, disappointment, the fear of being wrong. We cling to the hope that things will somehow change, that people will suddenly become honest, that our intuition was mistaken. But ignoring reality does not change it. The Stoics taught that wisdom lies in seeing things as they truly are, not as we wish them to be. As Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb people, but their judgments about those things." When we ignore the warning signs, we set ourselves up for greater pain in the long run. What begins as small inconsistencies can escalate into full-blown deception. What starts as a subtle feeling of unease can become undeniable suffering. The longer we refuse to see the truth, the more power we give it over us. But the moment we choose to face reality, we take back control. We stop being victims of manipulation, of false hope, of our own wishful thinking. Recognizing red flags is not about becoming cynical or distrusting everyone. It's about developing the wisdom to discern truth from illusion. The Stoics practiced this by training themselves to observe without emotional bias. They did not let hope cloud their judgment, nor did they allow fear to silence their inner knowing. They asked themselves, is this person's character consistent? Are their actions aligned with their words? What is reality showing me, beyond what I want to believe? So, ask yourself, are there any situations in your life right now where you are ignoring warning signs? Is there a truth you are afraid to accept? What would happen if you faced it with courage instead of denial? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The nature of the apathetic, when empathy is just a transaction. There is a kind of person who moves through life without ever truly feeling the suffering of others. They may wear the mask of kindness, but it is a calculated kindness, one that exists only as long as it serves their interests. The moment it no longer benefits them, they discard relationships, loyalty, and even basic decency without a second thought. The Stoics understood this type well. They warned against placing our trust in those whose virtue is merely a tool, rather than a core principle. Have you ever met someone who seemed warm and caring, only to later realize that their concern was conditional? Perhaps they were generous when they needed something from you, but indifferent when you were the one in need. Maybe they spoke of loyalty, yet disappeared the moment you were no longer useful to them. This is the nature of the apathetic. They do not feel true compassion because their motivations are rooted in self-interest rather than genuine goodwill. The Stoics taught that virtue is something we cultivate for its own sake, not for personal gain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A noble man compares and estimates himself by an idea which is higher than himself, and a mean man by one lower than himself. The one produces aspiration, the other ambition, which is the way in which a vulgar man aspires." The apathetic are driven by ambition, not virtue. Their kindness is a mask, their generosity a performance, and when the act no longer serves them, they walk away without remorse. So how do we navigate a world where such people exist? The Stoics would tell us, do not become bitter, do not become like them. Recognize them for what they are, and adjust your expectations accordingly. It is not your responsibility to change them, nor to waste your energy seeking fairness where none will be given. Instead, practice discernment. Surround yourself with those who act with integrity, not those who merely pretend to. Most importantly, remain steadfast in your own virtue. Just because others betray does not mean you should cease to be trustworthy. Just because others love only when convenient does not mean you should withhold kindness. True character is revealed in how we act when there is nothing to gain. Have you ever encountered someone who only cared when it benefited them? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. The absence of emotion and remorse, strength, or a hollow existence? Not everyone is burdened by conscience. Some people move through life untouched by guilt, unshaken by regret. They make mistakes, they hurt others, yet they do not pause to reflect, nor do they seek to make amends. To them, emotions are a weakness, and remorse is an unnecessary burden. They view their detachment as a kind of strength, proof that they are untouchable, immune to the suffering that weighs others down. But is this truly strength, or is it merely an escape from responsibility? The Stoics understood the danger of unchecked emotions, but they never advocated for apathy. To lack remorse is not to be free, it is to be incomplete. True strength, according to Stoicism, comes from self-awareness and responsibility. Seneca wrote, "He who does not admit his faults does not truly seek wisdom, for wisdom is found in the acknowledgement of our own failings." Those who refuse to feel remorse do not transcend suffering. They simply refuse to learn from it. They see guilt as a prison, when in truth, it is a teacher. Perhaps you have encountered such people. They hurt others without hesitation, they betray without a second thought, and when confronted, they dismiss their actions with indifference. To them, regret is a sign of weakness, and apologies are nothing more than empty words used for manipulation rather than genuine atonement. They do not seek growth because they do not see a problem within themselves. But what happens when a person suppresses all guilt and emotion? They may think they are free, but in reality, they are prisoners of their own emptiness. A life without self-reflection is a life without depth. The Stoics did not seek to eliminate all emotion. They sought to master it. To feel guilt when we have done wrong is not a flaw. It is a sign that we have the capacity for virtue. To feel remorse is not to be weak, but to be aware, to be human. So how do we deal with those who lack this awareness? The answer is not to fight them, nor to change them. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control the nature of others, only our response to them. If someone refuses to acknowledge their wrongs, it is not our duty to make them see. Instead, we should recognize them for who they are and adjust our expectations accordingly. Do not waste energy seeking justice from those who feel no responsibility. Do not let their lack of conscience harden your own heart. Stay true to your principles, even when others abandon theirs. Have you ever encountered someone who refuses to feel guilt or take responsibility? How did you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments. Psychological manipulation, the silent war on your mind. Not all battles are fought with swords and fists. Some are waged in the quiet corners of the mind, where doubt is planted like a seed, growing slowly until it consumes everything. The most dangerous manipulators do not attack directly. They make you question your own reality. They rewrite your memories, twist your words, and convince you that you are the problem. When you begin to doubt yourself, when you start believing that maybe you are overreacting, that maybe you did misunderstand, the battle is already lost. And the worst part? They never even had to raise their voice. This form of psychological manipulation, often called gaslighting, is insidious because it operates beneath the surface. A single comment here, a subtle contradiction there, and soon, your confidence begins to erode. "I never said that. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive." At first, you resist. You remember things clearly, don't you? But as time passes, the manipulator wears you down, making you second-guess your own thoughts. Eventually, you stop trusting yourself. You begin looking to them for validation, for reassurance that your reality is real. And that's exactly what they want: control over your perception. The Stoics taught that the only thing truly within our power is our mind. Man is disturbed not by things, but by the view he takes of them. said Epictetus. Psychological manipulators exploit this principle, but from the opposite direction. They change your perception until you no longer know what to believe. And once they have control over your thoughts, they have control over you. So how do you protect yourself from such invisible warfare? The first step is awareness. A Stoic remains grounded in reality, questioning not only others, but also their own reactions. If someone constantly makes you feel unsure of yourself, step back and examine the pattern. Are you truly being irrational, or are you being made to feel that way? Trust your instincts. Your perception may not always be perfect, but if someone consistently undermines your confidence, it is not by accident. The second step is detachment. The Stoics remind us that external forces, words, opinions, even the manipulations of others, are beyond our control. What matters is how we respond. Instead of engaging in endless arguments, step away. Instead of seeking validation from someone who thrives on your uncertainty, find your own truth. Write down your experiences. Keep records. Anchor yourself in facts, not shifting narratives. The stronger your sense of self, the less power manipulation has over you. Have you ever experienced psychological manipulation? How did you recognize it? And how did you break free? Share your thoughts in the comments. The illusion of control, when power becomes a mirage. We like to believe we are in control of our lives, our relationships, and the way people perceive us. But what happens when that control is nothing more than an illusion? What if the power we think we hold is actually a leash, keeping us bound to the expectations of others? Many people manipulate not out of malice, but out of fear. They fear uncertainty, fear losing their influence, fear being insignificant. To counter that fear, they attempt to control everything around them: people, outcomes, even emotions. They dictate how others should feel, how they should react, and what they should believe. At first, this control appears strong, even unshakable. But what they don't realize is that the tighter they grip, the more fragile their hold becomes. The Stoics understood this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." True power does not come from controlling others. It comes from mastering oneself. Those who seek to manipulate, who believe they can bend the world to their will, are fighting a losing battle. The world is not meant to be controlled. It is meant to be understood and accepted as it is. But here's the harsh truth. Manipulators rarely see themselves as such. They believe they are simply guiding others, correcting them, or helping them see the truth. They do not recognize that their desire to control is rooted in insecurity. And when their carefully crafted illusion starts to crack, when people begin to resist, when situations slip beyond their grasp, they panic. Instead of self-reflection, they double down, tightening their grip, unaware that they are only accelerating their own downfall. The Stoic way is different. Instead of trying to control others, we learn to control ourselves. Instead of forcing outcomes, we accept what is beyond our reach. There is a quiet strength in knowing that we cannot dictate how others act, only how we respond. And once we internalize this, we become untouchable. No amount of manipulation, no illusion of control, can shake us from our foundation. So ask yourself, are you clinging to an illusion of control? Do you try to shape others to fit your expectations? Or do you allow them to be as they are? True strength is found in letting go, not in holding on. Have you ever encountered someone who tried to control everything? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. Finding joy in others' suffering, a distorted sense of power. It's a dark reality, but some people don't just ignore the suffering of others. They take pleasure in it. They thrive in chaos, watching as others fall apart, feeding off the turmoil as if it gives them strength. These individuals may not always be the ones causing the pain, but they enable it, manipulate it, and sometimes even orchestrate it. Why? Because to them, power is not found in kindness or stability, but in control and destruction. Seeing others in pain reassures them that they are, at least for the moment, untouchable. The suffering of another is proof of their own superiority, and while they may never admit it, deep down, they enjoy it. The Stoics warn us about these kinds of people. Seneca wrote, "The greatest empire is to be emperor of oneself." Yet, those who take pleasure in others' suffering are the opposite. They seek dominion over others because they lack dominion over themselves. They cannot find peace within, so they create disorder outside. They are not strong. They are dependent on the failures of others to feel whole. You've probably met someone like this before. Maybe they always seem to be around when trouble starts, never directly involved but always watching. Maybe they subtly push people toward conflict, whispering just the right words to ignite tension. And when the inevitable disaster unfolds, they step back, arms crossed, pretending to be an innocent bystander. The question is, how do we deal with such people? The Stoic answer is simple: do not engage. Do not fuel their need for drama. Do not react in a way that gives them satisfaction. As Epictetus taught, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. They want a reaction. They want to see you suffer. The most powerful thing you can do is remain unshaken. It is easy to feel anger, even hatred, toward those who take pleasure in the suffering of others. But Stoicism teaches us that resentment only chains us to them. The true test of character is not in punishing those who enjoy chaos, but in refusing to be drawn into it. So ask yourself, have you ever encountered someone who seemed to enjoy the downfall of others? How did you respond? Did you engage in their game? Or did you walk away with your dignity intact? Share your thoughts in the comments.